Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where last episode we managed to land our core module on Duna, and we landed only about a kilometer away from our other vehicle that is currently there, intended to be docked up with it, only to discover that we forgot to include a command module for that, and that's, a bit of a problem. So we're going to need to do a servicing trip on that, but we're not ready for servicing yet. That said, we could bring a Kerbal along with our life support module. So the real question there, if we open up our Duna colony, the real question there is, would this provide enough life support for one Kerbal to make the trip to Duna? We could find that out pretty easily. So I'm going to save this as the life support module. There we go. And then we're going to detach everything that is not part of the life support module. We should also probably reroute this. So let's reroute this over to, say, here. There we go. And then we're going to attach, or rather detach, everything out over here, get rid of that, and detach this, get rid of that. So this is our life support module here. Now this is intended for life support on the planet with an atmosphere, right? We've got the air filters, the carbon extractors. So the carbon extractors take the carbon dioxide and do what with it? Hang on. Carbon extractor. That is not coming up with anything. Okay, excellent. So we're just going to go in here then and just find it in this list. So the air filter there, here's the carbon extractors. They extract carbon from carbon dioxide, leaving pure breathable oxygen. Okay, so that's probably fine. Rated for up to 9 Kerbals on the 2.5 meter variant. This is a 1.25 meter variant. That's rated for up to 8 Kerbals. Interesting. Is only one Kerbal different with basically double the size? Wild. Well, that's fine for now. So the carbon extractor is fine. And do we have a water purifier on this? Yes, we do. But I don't know if we have enough water. That's a major concern at this point. And we're going to need to create a booster for this as well, and a location for a Kerbal to sit. So, here's what I'm thinking right now. We need to figure out where the center of mass is on this, and that's fairly convenient. Center of mass is pretty much right there, although this is not the angle that I want this to be at. About right there. Okay. So that's all well and good. And I want to have a similar attachment system right on the bottom, so that'll be approximately there. Although we're going to need to not do that. There we go. And we're going to need to have this be, no, not like that. I want to grab just this guy. No, just the docking port. There we go. Okay, now as far as positioning goes, it's going to need to be moved over a little bit. And the docking port is also upside down. Noted. Come here, docking port. This is why we're having trouble selecting it, because it's upside down. So, come here. Got it. That's now the correct orientation, but it's not in the correct position. And then that reoriented it. Okay, that's exciting. Come here, docking port. Okay, rotate it like that. There we go. Now it's in the correct orientation. Now, we need to get it roughly centered on this line. I still want to have the center of mass overlay on. There we go. So yeah, roughly over this line. So that should be perhaps about there. Let's just use the move tool here. And that snapped into position. And that snapped into position. So that's not exactly on the line there. I want to move it forward just a little bit. There we go. That's pretty close to being on the line. And then that's pretty close as well to being on that center of mass. Okay, so that should be our 2 attachment points in theory. So what we need now is we need to have like a... I want this to be perhaps We could have it be a simple Mark 1 lander can that is clipping into this greenhouse container. We could put the lander can up here. And what that would end up meaning is that we would use some struts. So we'd do like a modular girder segment here, and then the lander can would go up here. And then we'd do like a sky crane up this direction. But I would want to put in a remote guidance unit up here as well. So something kind of like this. So this Mark 1 lander can only has space for one Kerbal. And we may want to consider upscaling that a little bit to bring like 2 Kerbals. I'd like to have a pilot. So we could have a Mark 2 lander can here, and then a remote guidance unit on top of that. We would need to have some form of power as well. This doesn't have built-in power. This is intended to be connected up to the main grid, right? So we'd need some form of power on this. So something like a 1K rechargeable battery bank. And then we'd probably need at least a couple of ideally closable solar panels. So it'd be something kind of like, apparently we can't mount those directly to this surface. Interesting. But we can mount it over here. That's fine. I'll allow it. So that looks good. And then if we were to open these doors, yeah. So there's some inventory there and there. That's okay. So the idea here is that we're going to reuse this remote guidance unit once we get there. And this remote guidance unit is going to be moved over to our other vehicle. Now the question is, if we were to run a simulation of this, would we be able to have essentially infinite of all resources except maybe food? I don't know that this would actually produce all of the food that we would need. Let's see, support, waste, oxygen, food, and water. Okay, so we'd have 2 seats for our Kerbals here. And we'd be looking to bring along definitely an engineer. And we would also want to bring along some sort of a tool. So we would need to go to, let's see here, what is that called again? Yeah, we'd need to have like an electric screwdriver. I'd put that right in here if we could. We would just go into seat 0 inventory, and we'd put an electric screwdriver in here, if I can remember how to do that. Seat must be crewed at launch to enable inventory. Okay, so we would need to put a Kerbal in first. Noted. So we would want to bring an engineer and I think a pilot. So we would bring along, say, Jessely and Pabis, like that. There we go. And then now we can go into seat 0 inventory, bring along an electric screwdriver, or, right, I think we have to drag and drop this. Yeah, can't just click and drop. That's fine. So that's okay. I also want to do an electric screwdriver here, just in case. So we'll do that for now. That looks good. And then on top of this, we'd want to put a sky crane. So we'd have another docking port that would be oriented like so, and then that would be like this. I'm going to save this, and now we're going to bring in something with a sky crane on it. So we can load in this guy. I didn't mean to load it like that. I meant to load it and merge it. Okay, life support module, load this, and then open something with a sky crane, merge. There we go. And then this can get attached, in theory, somewhere. But what I really want to do is I want to detach here, which I don't think we can do without rerouting this. Can we reroute this from here? Yes, we can. Okay, so what we should do then is I think we should reroute it to be this docking port. That's now the root part, and with that, we can attach it to something, because there's an attachment point there. So we can just rotate it like this, attach it like that. Now we can grab this sky crane, and that'll go like this. Perfect. And that's currently attached like that. That's probably fine. We need to get rid of this, of course. That is no longer necessary. But now we've got our sky crane here, and I'm interested in grabbing this guy. This is in quad symmetry right now. I'm going to do this in just single symmetry. So I'm going to attach that down to here, and then we're going to do that for all 4 of these. So one here, and we'll see how bendy this guy is. It might be fairly bendy, but we'll just attach this up over here, and then over on this side, we'll attach this over here. Now, before we go too much further, I want to do a quick test of the life support capabilities of this. So let's save this. Let's put it out on the pad. So we've got Kerbals inside. We're just going to put this up in a vacuum, or just an unbreathable space. It doesn't matter where we put it. This will be reverted. This is a simulation. I just want to see how we're doing on our food and oxygen situation. I suspect we're going to be net negative, because that'll be interesting. It's going to be because of the algae farm here, in theory. Now, that has some built-in fertilizer, and do we have anything that's making fertilizer? Yeah, this algae farm does make fertilizer, and then this uses fertilizer and makes waste, if I remember correctly. Okay, let's put this out in orbit here real quick, because we need to test life support. So here we are in orbit, and we need to start farming and start cultivation. Missing ore. Okay, that's definitely noted. We may need to do something with that. So we can't start the air filters here, but we can absolutely start the carbon extractors and the water purifiers. I don't think we need 2 of these, to be honest. I'm only going to have 1 of each active. And then let's extend our solar panel. I am concerned about power. This may not be enough power production either, but let's see what that ends up feeling like. So if we look in here, we can see our electric charge is net positive. That's good. Our oxygen, water, and food are all sitting even. Okay, we're definitely draining oxygen. But it's extremely slow. Okay, I'm going to hop in here and focus on carbon so that it's a little more stable. Okay, a little less dizzying this way. So we're keeping an eye on our oxygen count, and we're just going to warp on forward. Electricity ran out. That's probably just due to the warping. I'm wondering if that also turned off our devices here. So let's check here. So inactive, operational, inactive, and operational. Okay. So our water appears to be net neutral. That's a good sign. That's a very, very good sign. Our carbon dioxide is building up, which of course means that we could activate our other carbon scrubber. So that would be this guy. And that's now operational. Our oxygen is now net positive. For the moment, anyway. Until we run out of carbon dioxide, which we are working on doing. Okay. I'm fairly confident at this point that this is a viable life support setup for at least these 2 Kerbals. We are net negative on the oxygen, very, very slightly, but I think that's okay. The food we're net negative on as well. It's been 4 days. I want to warp this forward long enough. The main problem here is the electric charge. I'm going to put us in a much higher orbit. So let's move this up to, I don't know what the maximum is. Whatever the max orbit is, it doesn't matter. So we're now at, in theory, a very high orbit here. Yep, that looks good. And now we shouldn't have the electric charge issues. So let's sit at a much higher rate of speed, and I just want to keep an eye on what we've got going on here. So the food is definitely net negative at this time. Our electricity depleted again. It shouldn't. That's a time warp issue. But I want to check here. The algae farm is missing ore, and the greenhouse is farming. How much fertilizer do we have at this moment? We've still got 350. So, are we actually making food? This is actually a minus here. That's intriguing. Okay, now it goes positive. I think we are making food. It's just not quite enough to be net positive for these 2 Kerbals. That, of course, means that we should probably consider at least packing more food, but the main issue is that we're not using any fertilizer. The greenhouse is missing carbon dioxide. Ah. So we actually need to turn off one of our carbon scrubbers. And maybe the other one as well. And only run the carbon scrubbers periodically. That's interesting for sure. So our carbon dioxide is now building up, and we can see that the greenhouse should now be actually functioning. Yeah, it is farming, allegedly. And we can see that our food is... Is this positive? Very, very slightly positive on the food. Okay. So the oxygen is a lot more negative like this, but we need to allow our carbon dioxide to build up. So what this means is we should probably launch with full carbon dioxide. And then just run one of these oxygen scrubbers for some amount of time. Our water is net negative. That is definitely good to know. So that means that I think that we definitely want to get a mining module out before we get our Kerbal module out. Because we're going to need a source of water once we get there. Our farming consumes water, remember. And this algae farm here, this will produce fertilizer, but we don't have ore for it either. So in order to produce more food, we're going to need ore. So that means that we really should get our mining module out first. But look at how long it's been. It's been 167 days in this simulation, and we're doing fine. Our food is a little on the low side, to be sure. But let's pull this back. And we've basically learned what we needed to know, which is we got to send the mining module first. We need a source of ore and a source of water there before we get Kerbals there. So that's absolutely fine. We can actually use the mining module to grab the grab the fuel production module. That's absolutely fine. So what we want to do is save this then as the mining module. We'll save that. And I want to reroute this to be, I don't know, maybe the inline water drill. That sounds good. And then we'll detach everything out over here and detach everything over here. Okay, so in order to deliver this, we're, of course, going to need to move in a sky crane. And I just want to, sure, go ahead and save that. That's fine. I just want to move in this guy. Okay, and then we can attach that. We need to reroute this, though. Sure, we can just attach it right over here. I don't care how it's attached. This is good enough. We can then grab this, move that out, and get rid of this. Excellent. So we've now got our sky crane here. That'll be absolutely fine, but can we attach that here? The answer is no. So we're going to have to construct like a gantry for our sky crane. Okay. What's our center of mass? Our center of mass is smack dab in the middle. That's convenient. So what I want to do is I want to grab a modular girder segment here. And I'm going to put that here. And we're going to put another one over on this side, like that. So just mirroring it right on over. Then I want to put in a modular girder hub here and here. We're just creating a gantry for this. And then we want to join these together, ideally. We can do a modular girder segment here and here. But then the question is, how are we going to get this joined in the center, right? Well, that's going to be an interesting question, because we can get here, but we can't actually connect these together. But what we can do is we can just slap this guy right in the center, like this. Use the move tool to place it exactly where it should be, which is about here, but we need to have the snap be removed. Having it be about right here. There we go. And this gantry should actually be removable, shouldn't it? Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this off here. We're going to grab these docking ports, and we're going to place them underneath this. So this docking port is going to need to go in snapping on, about right there. And then this docking port is going to need to go about right there. Because we do need to be able to remove these. So I'm just going to move these over very slightly to be about there. And then this one is going to be moved over as well to be about right there. Excellent. Then we can duplicate these docking ports and put this in like so. Okay. Then this modular girder segment goes here, this modular girder segment goes here, and then the fuel tank is going to be kind of splitting the difference between the two of them. And I just need to get it rotated correctly here. Like that. Okay, so now we can move it, and that is, of course, going to be placed right up over here. I don't know if that's actually centered or not. Let's see here. Somewhere about like that. We're definitely going to need to run some tests on that to see how centered that is, but we're also going to need to run some struts here, and I'm going to do one strut connecting here to here, and then one strut connecting here to here, like that. Then, as far as the struts here go, I think that we are going to have... I'm going to remove this strut, and that's going to connect from here to here. And then this strut here is going to go from here to here. And then this one, we've got a strut here already. Okay, that's fine. Here to here. And then this one is going to go from here to here. So something along the lines of that. We're going to need that as a bit of a gantry there to get ourselves where we need to go. We'll have to run some tests on that, see if it's actually working, if it can hold attitude. And the sky crane is going to need to not be detached until such a time as we get this thing into position, right? So that's going to be a little awkward. You can see how high up our center of mass is on this. However, once we're on the ground, as long as we're sitting upright, which hopefully we will be with this center of mass being that high, once we're sitting upright, we would be able to use our ore drills here to fill up these hex cans and significantly lower our center of mass. So if you just see here, we can lower our center of mass like that, like this, like this, like this, and like this. So that's not a huge lowering of the center of mass, but it's certainly some lowering of the center of mass. We don't want to lift this full, though, ideally. So we're going to get that back out of there. And we just have a really high center of gravity. So that is absolutely going to require test landings. And the first test that I want to run here is we're just going to put this out in a low Kerbal orbit. And yeah, we don't have a source of power here right now. We don't have a communications device on here. I'm not sure if we actually need a communications device on here, but it's probably useful. We should probably have one on here. But the first thing I want to do is a center of mass test. Center of thrust versus center of mass. And we could have just looked at it in the VAB, but it's a little easier to see if we just simulate it like this. So we're going to do that. I'm going to activate these engines, and we're going to see how stable we stay with the engines active. Very is the answer. Okay, that was a successful test. I like it. What's our thrust to weight? 0.69 here? What is it over Duna? Again, I don't really care where our orbit is over Duna. We're just going to hop over here real quick and check what that thrust to weight is. 2.3. And let's set this at a minimum orbit. So yeah, minimum safe value for orbit, that's fine. 2.3 thrust to weight over Duna is reasonably fine. Yeah, that seems good. So that's fine. Once again, we're in kill rot here, and we'll do one more test fire. We're able to hold attitude. That looks good. Let's flip this to retrograde and see how quickly it turns. Not terribly, but not abysmally either. So that's good to know. Now, as far as a landing test goes, we will need to do one, but we'll need some additional work on this. We'll probably need a duplicate of this gantry down on the bottom side in order to attach our rocket to it, unless we can attach a docking port directly down here, which I kind of doubt. I doubt that we'll be able to do that. So we'll see how this ends up going. That'll be for next episode. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Dark Horse, Ethan Feldman, Aurelio, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge, Estiel, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.